All right, how's it going, American Truckers? I'm here with Mr. Rivera. Mr. Rivera's been in the industry quite a while. Uh, Actually, with me, started years ago. 2012?
2012, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna have him introduce himself, kind of tell you his background and where he's from, and what all he's done in the industry. He's pretty much done everything you can think of. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, guys? Good evening. My name is Richard, and yeah, I started in the industry back in November 2012. Once I came out of the service, um, actually Morgan here, he was my trainer at that time when I first entered the industry, and then from there on, was a company driver for a little bit. Moved on to becoming an owner operator. Did that for a little bit. Moved on, did hoppers very briefly there for a little bit as well, and then afterwards coming off the road and doing local. And from there, kind of was blessed with an opportunity that kind of fell on my lap at the moment. At that time, back in 2017, becoming a freight broker, and then I've been a freight broker ever since. Um, Primarily, have dealt more with refrigerated freight, refrigerated and dry vans. Probably the two biggest things I've done. I have dabbed here and there on flatbed. It's not really all that difficult in a sense on that aspect of it. Done a little bit of LTL and hot shop. But that's practically it for the brokerage side. And here we are, still rocking and rolling.
Good deal, man. I mean, out of all the students I ever had, man, you've gone farther than anybody. Like, you took off in the industry. You went past me, man. I mean, you just took off. I guess it's that army training there, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't know if it was planned. I think it was a lot of blessings and being in the right spot at the right time. But hey, I'll take it.
All right, now we're gonna get into some of these questions. These questions both for drivers and customers out there that want to learn how they can vet brokers, how drivers can vet brokers, different things like that. It's basically going to be a learning experience for everybody involved watching this video. It's going to be a learning experience for me as well. You know, as Richard can tell you, we both tried the owner operator thing back when neither one of us knew anything of what we were doing. You know, and had we had the information that we have today and the stuff he's fixing to explain a little bit, you would be a lot more successful. We would have been a lot more successful at that time. And don't get me wrong, we were pretty successful for really not knowing much, but not as successful as we could have been. But here,
Absolutely, yeah.
here we go on number one, and this is a two-part question: how to vet a broker. How can a driver vet a broker that he's not going to get ripped off? How can a customer vet a broker that they're dealing with someone who's legitimate that's going to do them a good job? And I'm not sure if some of you drivers know out there, but you can run a load and not get paid if you get the wrong broker. You know, so I'm sure Richard can explain how to go about that process for both customers and truckers.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We'll go ahead and take the first part as far as carriers vetting brokers. I strongly believe it's very crucial for a lot of carriers that utilize factoring companies. A lot of times the factoring companies kind of already do that, so carriers don't have to worry so much about it. But I always say, as a carrier, it's your business. So, you run your business. Nobody's going to run your business better than you. With that comes, it's always okay to take that extra second and put another second, set of eyes on it and make sure you guys are doing what you possibly can. But the biggest thing to jump out when you guys are dealing with when carriers are dealing with brokers is really look at the credit score and the days to pay. Those are going to be your two biggest things right there. That's going to be, raise a red flag in a sense. When it comes to dealing with a broker that, maybe having payment issues or it's taking too long to pay. Generally speaking, I mean, obviously they say the credit, the higher the credit score. I've seen some 100, but generally speaking, I'm still around that 95, 97 range. That's pretty typical. That's very average, so to speak. They start dropping below that quite a bit. You start getting to the 80s. That's something I would definitely start paying attention to. The days to pay. Generally, when the credit score drops, the days to pay goes up. So you should kind of see that work together. And that could be for numerous things, but you want to catch that. And like I said, when you're a factoring companies are going to keep an eye on that. So when you are looking at hauling low with a particular broker, and you guys might have had this happen where a factoring company come back and say, well, they're not factorable, so we're not we won't factor their invoices. The reason for that, generally speaking, is because of their credit score. Or they may have, issues going on right now with their bond or in regards to payment. So they'll just tell you that they're not going to factor it. Then of course it puts all the liability back on you on whether you want to move forward or not. So that's generally the two biggest things to keep an eye for when it's carrier vetting a broker. Also the MC number, it's going to tell you something. For the guys, for an example, like you look on the credits or on the DAT or truck stop, whatever it is you're using, most of the time you'll see most of the carrier or most of the brokers have the credit score, the days to pay on there, and then you'll see some brokers saying that don't have anything. That just means they're usually generally your newer brokers. There's not enough data on them, so there's not, that's the reason why they don't have a credit score on there. It's not that they're bad brokers. It's just, obviously you're taking a bigger risk. So keep that in mind. Generally, you're also going to find with those that your factoring companies out there, for the most part, wouldn't factor them, or they will, but there'll be some, there'll be more stipulations in regards. Everybody's different on that. There's really no set ordeal in this industry of, it's got to be done like this. It's kind of left open in a lot of sense to agreements. So whatever it is you want to accept on that, if you're a carrier and you want to work with a newer broker and take that additional risk, because for whatever reason, you may do something like, for an example, they'll give you a half of, you guys agree on a payment, whatever the rate is, and they'll do half when you pick up the load, and the other half will be given to you by contract or something like that as soon as you deliver. That's heard of. That's usually how those newer brokers kind of go about conducting business for a little bit until they can get themselves established. For the customer vetting a broker is a big thing. I don't know. I couldn't tell you how many customers are truly vetting their brokers properly. I'm sure some of them are. I would think, I would like to hope that the bigger ones definitely are, but you never know. But there are a few ways to go about it. Your biggest thing, again, for a customer, they're going to want to vet their brokers because, for an example, they decide to do business with a broker. Maybe he decides to, obviously get paid and then not pay the carriers, which does happen more than what than what most people know. Broker, get a bond on the company. There's a claim on the bond, sometimes multiple claims on a bond. Bond's only $75,000, so it's going to go up to $75,000. If there's more than $75,000 worth of invoices, then people are going to get short paid or not get paid at all. And when that happens, well, the bond's only going up to $75,000. Those carriers still got to get paid by law from somebody. Guess what? They're going to go back to those customers. It does not matter that the customer already paid the broker. There's quite a bit of instances out there where they have already paid the brokers and then turn around, the brokers not pay the carrier. And, of course, the broker goes out of business or whatever happens, that the carrier never gets paid from the broker. And the customer is practically needing to go in and cut a check for the same exact load twice. It does happen, unfortunately, which I think is the biggest reasons why customers should be vetting their brokers and just kind of keeping an eye on that every now and then. And then there's other, you want to make sure, we'll keep it that simple. There's a lot to go into it, but those are your biggest things, to be honest. Those are your biggest things to keep an eye out for. And really from a customer perspective, as well as a carrier, keeps, if you look at that, you're generally, if there's any issues, those are going to be your couple of things right there. They're going to tell you, okay, you need to look into this more to figure out what other issues are in it or how deep it goes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's pretty good right there. Have you ever denied a load to one of your carriers, and if so, why?
Yeah, I've denied I won't name no names. There's some of them are pretty big names out there. There's some carriers out there, believe it or not. They have we use carriers, brokers, better said, brokers for the most part utilize this service called Carrier 401. And it's kind of, it's just a service that we can kind of go based off of to do a quick vetting of our carriers, and just kind of make sure that they have, the necessary ordeals to be able to legally conduct business, so on and so forth, conditional braidings, that kind of stuff. Well, in the midst of it as well, on the right-hand side, there'll be access to show you if that carrier has any 401 freight guards. Freight guards, quite honestly, to answer the question on that, anybody can give anybody a freight guard. I kind of disagree with that aspect of it. I think it should be utilized for serious purposes only. Obviously, in transit modification, I think is a big one. Things like that nature. But freight guards is something that I look for. And so when I pull, me as a broker, when I have a carrier on the phone, if I don't know this carrier very well or anything like that, I'll ask them for their MC number. The first thing that I'm looking for when I pull their MC number is definitely freight guard is right there in front of me. So I'm going to look at that. I'm looking at how long they've been in business. Those are usually the two big things I'm looking at. Believe it or not, I've had people call me in and they've had, 2 months of experience, but 5 freight guards. I think the most I've seen with one carrier in particular, and they're pretty large carrier, pretty large outfit, it's been over 40 freight guards. That's quite a bit. I mean, to have one here and there is one thing, depending on what the aspect of it is, what happened, everybody's got to take it, however they take it and kind of read at it, for whatever it is and then make whatever your decision is. But those are usually, that's been really the only reason that I've done that, or if I've known for sure that they've double brokered. So double brokering is a no. I definitely will not do that. So,
and that's part of what you do for customers, right? You kind of weed out the more dangerous carriers for them to haul their freight, correct?
Correct. Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all a big team. Whether it's the customer, the broker. I mean, really the whole aspect of brokering come about was because it made it easier and cost effective for a customer that has quite a bit of volume, in a sense, to go ahead and contract it out, in a sense, to a third party. There's numerous benefits for that. One, obviously, third party generally tends to have, for the most part, what is needed to be successful in handling, the amount of freight and just overlooking it and reporting back to the customer, which makes it easier to the customer, and it frees up more time for them to focus on other things and expanding their business. On top of it, it also provides, another line of credit, in a sense. So, that makes it easier for the customer to have a little more flexibility, in a sense, when it comes to payment terms, because now they have another line of credit with utilizing a broker. But yes, ideally, you'll be counted. The customer should have that trust there, in a sense, with the broker, that the broker is doing their proper due diligence and vetting these carriers correctly and making sure that minimizing the risk as much as possible. Because even though the broker is the one responsible and is contracting the carriers, we've seen numerous times as well that just because it goes between the broker and the carrier, at the end of the day, if there's accident involved, fatalities or anything like that of that nature, yes, it has happened where customers have been civilly held liable as well. So you want to make sure you have your brokers out there that you can trust. They know what they're doing, and you have trust that they're making the right decisions, because overall we're nothing but a big old team, really, at the end of the day.
And as far as a driver, like, take us back to the days when we were doing our thing. How can a driver kind of come about with a roundabout, figuring, because I know we spoke about this before, and most of the time drivers call in with no idea what that lane's actually paying, right?
Yeah, it happens. It's kind of sad, actually. Because they're business owners, and they, you gotta remember, nobody's gonna take care of your business better than you. So you gotta know what your business requires, and that's gonna be different from one person to another. I like to say, I don't know if many owner operators realize it, but owner operators, really, at the end of the day, you guys are individual entities. So for the owner operators, your next owner operator sitting beside you is really your competitor. That's not a bad thing. It's just, that's business. So what that says, obviously cost of operation is going to be different from one competitor to the next. Just like we may go to Walmart for something because we don't want to go to Target. It may be a little more expensive at Target, so I pay more for it, and we could just go to Walmart. Same thing, out there on that aspect of it. So cost of operation, I cannot drive home the importance of one needing to understand what their cost of operation is. This is what it's going to take minimally for me to cut even. And so then I can know that I need to be making more than that. A lot of folks don't know that. And you can tell. I don't have to ask them if they know what their cost of operation is or not like that. You can tell. But you need to begin with, you might as well not even worry about running business until you know what your cost of operation is, because everything that is done in your business and every decision you're going to make is going to revert back to that cost of operation somehow or another. Your variable cost, your fixed cost, all that stuff, and the other plays a big game into it. My ordeal has always been, and we've talked about this numerous times, like all businesses, what can we do and as far as controlling wise, to keep that cost of operation as low as possible. The lower we can keep it, generally speaking, the more money we can make, the more flexibility we have as running our business, and it becomes easier. It's easier to just stay profitable. The higher cost of operation is, it's not a bad thing. It just means as well that you need to figure out what lanes are most profitable for you, and so on and so forth. And you generally tend to have less flexibility in a sense on that aspect of it. So you need to know that. Using that and truck stop, usually, I know there's all kind of different platforms out there as far as load boards and everything like that. I know there's 1, 2, 3 load boards, one of them, truck stop, that. That truck stop are generally speaking your larger ones, your 2 biggest ones. They both have ways where you can run, even on carrier side, you can run some lanes and stuff like that. They'll probably charge you more, obviously. So if you have the cheaper version, you may have to upgrade to the next version to be able to see that. It's all a tax write-off in a sense when it's all said and done. So it's up to you how you want to go about it. But you can run some, run some numbers, and it'll give you a roundabout figure what that lane pays. Me personally, to be honest with you, you can just look at what the brokers have it posted for. Some are going to have the lanes, the rate posted. Others are not going to have the rate posted for whatever reason. And look at how many trucks are in the area. That already tells you, and who's going to have the upper hand, who's not, and use that to your advantage. Now, using it to your advantage doesn't necessarily mean to be greedy and go out there and ask for $1,000 more with the lanes paying. Believe it or not, I've had people call in, and a lane will be going for $2,500. They'll be like, "Yep, I'll do it for 38 or 35." Really? Come on. No, nobody's sitting around that kind of stuff. But if the lane's going for 25 and you call in and you see that there's more loads than trucks, and you ask for 27, 28, yeah, you're going to get people that are willing to, they're going to be willing to wheel and deal with you. And if that's not, if it's not profitable for you or anything like that, then you really have to start questioning yourself that did you put yourself in the right area? If that's not a profitable area, then you should know where your cost of operation is and run your business around that, and run to an area that generally is going to pay where you need to be at so you remain profitable. So yeah, those are always deals that you can look at. You obviously the easiest ones run the lane. The biggest thing is just to keep an eye on how many loads are posted compared to how many trucks are in the area, and what's the average rates that you see on them, and then kind of you can use that to your ordeal, and then kind of you'll be real close. You'll be real close. You'll get, if you're being reasonable, you'll definitely come up with a rate that is very, that should be profitable for you and your business. And obviously it's going to be in market, probably even a little bit above what the market's paying at that time. And, you'll keep on rocking and rolling.
And basically everyone, what he's talking about is supply and demand. Yep. More loads than you have trucks. Well, then obviously the more it's going to cost to move that freight to get a truck on it. Now it can flip and go the other way, and you can end up with more trucks than loads. That's why what he's talking about right there is why you can haul a load. Let's just say, for example, Dallas to Houston. You might get it this week for $3 a mile. Next week, you might come back. The market's flipped. There's more trucks than loads, and you'll end up hauling that same load for half of that. You won't find a broker paying it out. So that's supply and demand, and that's something that you as an owner operator need to know, and even as a customer, you need to know that kind of stuff too, because that's going to tell you how much you're paying out. And kind of to reiterate something here, I know drivers feel like brokers are the enemy sometimes, but you got to remember that the customer's trying to ship that freight for as little as possible. The driver's trying to move that freight for as much as possible. The broker's in the middle trying to make a little bit of money on it, and they don't make that much per load. So he's trying to make a little bit, and he's playing the middle. So that's kind of how that works. But you as an owner operator, if you know the truck to load ratio and you know how to look that kind of stuff up, that'll help you with knowing how much bargaining power you have, is basically what he's explaining.
Yeah. Now, when you take, for an example, you do a quick example. I know, since this whole COVID ordeal been around, but Southern Cal, we'll just take Southern Cal for an example. That's an area, I generally move a lot more reefers, and I move, like I said earlier, reefers and driving is my thing, but I move more reefers than anything. Southern Cal that's been an area that's been real tight for the general part, for the most part throughout the whole ordeal, and way more loads than there is trucks. So obviously excuse me, that keeps the rates very, very elevated. And I mean, it is what it is. It makes it, sometimes it even makes it harder, to be honest with you, to gauge what really the rate's gonna be because of so many different ordeals going on. But you take that, and let's take it for an example, go to Florida. You'll get some of these guys that'll be happy. They'll get a lane. We'll say, that time comes Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll get a broker or customer really got to move a load real bad, and they're willing to pay a, one pick, one drop to, from Santa Maria or Salinas, whatever, to West Palm Beach. We'll say they'll pay $9 grand, 10 grand to the truck. Tickle to death. Yeah, man, I'm gonna take this load. Got 10 grand on it. Yeah, that's awesome. You got to West Palm Beach, you deliver. And then all of a sudden, let's say, for an example, you're trying to work yourself to get back out of Cali so you can get you another good paying load, which, I mean, I don't blame you. I'd probably be doing the same thing too. But you have to understand that once you get to West Palm Beach and deliver it, you're not going to get anywhere near that going back to Cali. That's, you're going to be honest with you. You're probably, and I'm not looking at a board right now, but and I don't do a whole lot myself coming out of Florida. But to be honest with you, you're looking at what, 2,500 miles, give or take, somewhere in there, just going back and forth. We'll say somewhere in that ballpark, maybe a little bit more, give or take. Probably back now, West Palm Beach, going to Salinas, West Palm, probably around the 2,800, 3,000 mile mark, around there, somewhere in that ballpark. If you look at that, don't be surprised. You might get one paying 4,200, 4,500 going back. And you'll be like, oh man. That's why a lot of times as well, you got to keep in mind that, owner operators, I don't like, it's hard for me to do it, but I'm going to be honest with you. It's not important. Once you become an owner operator, remember, you're a business. So the rate per mile is not all that important. It's overall your cost, and then how much you're making throughout that week to cover that cost and what's left over after you're paying taxes, so on and so forth. So keep in mind that that's the aspect of it. So if you know that you're operating, your operating cost and so on and so forth is good, and that, okay, with fuel, and fuel obviously dictates and goes up and down, but okay, I'm going to be at $4 grand, let's just say, throw it out there, and that load paid 10 grand going back. You have to ask yourself, okay, is it worth me taking that load at 4,500 to make it back to Cali, where I can potentially get another 10,000 or whatever the case may be, or should I work back? And, should I take smaller loads and get to an area where it's halfway decent going back to Cali? I'm going to be quite honest with you. Going from the East Coast to an area that is paying very well, like Cali, the rates are not going to be that well, no matter where you're at. If you're coming out of Florida, the rates are not going to be that well going back to Cali. If you decide I'm going to take a little short one and, take it up and deliver, let's say in Tennessee, and then grab something from Tennessee going out there, yeah, you can do that. It may be a little bit better on the rate per mile, but it's still not going to be all that great. So if you're thinking that you're going to get, $3.50, $4 a mile, like you probably would get coming out of Cali, you're not going to get that. So you have to realize that. And the reason why is because you're going back to an area that has a lot more loads, and there's trucks, and it knows supply and demand. It knows that you're going to, as far as everything works out, you're going back to an area where you, for the most part, as long as you're reasonable, you can name your price and you're going to get it. And so you got to add all that up and put it together. So it's not necessarily, by all means, if you can hit the ball, if you can hit the ball out of the ballpark and make buku money on every single load you touch, hey, I ain't mad at you, make it work. But ideally, don't have that impression that you're going to do that every single time and then come up short, because the reality is that's not really how it works.
Now, I know you were telling me one time, and we was going to kind of touch on this, about drivers, especially some of the Cali drivers, pulling scams on brokers.
Oh.
You want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, as they all say, the more money there is in something, the more scams you see come along. And that is so true. But I won't name no names. There'll be some drivers that, and probably even customers as well, that know it's a pretty big operation that's been going on for quite some time out there in the Glendale, California area, with quite a bit of carriers. A matter of fact, this happened so much that I believe some factoring companies started kind of putting it together, because they're factoring companies for brokers as well. It's not just for carriers. It goes both ways. So they started putting together and kind of putting this whole kingpin, so to speak, of carriers that have been involved, double brokering, triple brokering. I mean, you just get to the point where you don't even know who has your load anymore. And that's a bad situation to be in. I mean, that sucks. But there's so much money, and these guys tend to know each other. A lot of these owner operators know each other, and so on and so forth. Which is, there's good that can't come out of it, knowing each other like that. But you'll get this person that'll call me and be like, "Hey, I'll take this load for you, blah, blah. You willing to deal with him? You really think that he's going to, be the one to go do your load for you? He signed the rate confirmation, send it back, all that, stuff in the other. And if you don't, if you're not a broker doing your due diligence, you'll actually get taken advantage of. And he'll send his cousin in there or his best friend or something. And he may work for another company or has his own company. And his own company may not even have insurance. So now your load is going on a truck that you don't even know who it is. You didn't vet them properly, obviously, because you're under the assumption that the other company is the one doing the load for you, not whoever the real company is. They don't have no insurance, and they're rocking and rolling. And, they have this thing, oh, well, he's leased to me. That happens a lot of time. I can't tell you how many times, oh, he's leased to my company. He's leased to my company. The reality is that if you're broke, you need to make sure that's okay if he is leased to the company. There's nothing illegal that says he's not allowed to be leased to the company. If they have a lease agreement in place, that makes it a legal contract. But if he's an owner operator, and he's running under your deal, then technically speaking, if he's leased to you, there should be your name on the side of his door, and so your MC number and stuff like that. If it's not, then he's his own entity, which means that I need to make sure I'm vetting and acquiring the information I need for that particular entity. But yeah, there's a big ordeal with that. You'll see them posted on that. They'll be posted on that, trying to move some loads, so on and so forth. There's a lot of double, triple brokering, a lot of scams like that going on. And unfortunately, what happens is, and I know I've heard, some of the reports. I've never had, I don't know anybody in particular, but I know I've heard some reports here and there where they'll get somebody, they act like a broker and they'll broker it out to somebody else. That dude goes on and does the load, think everything's good to go. For whatever reason, he gets on the other end, drops it off, sends in the POD. I paid, I would pay in this case, good thing it hasn't happened to me that I know of anyways, but I would pay the carrier that I thought did it all along, not knowing that he wasn't the one that did it, and you never get paid. And that's happened a lot. So you just did that whole load and fuel and cost and everything like that, and don't get paid for it. And I didn't know nothing about it because, so generally speaking, the way I get around that, generally I call the shippers. I ask them with my, if the truck checked in. One that tells me the truck was there on time. So that's just something I do, both from customers and for the driver as well to, just kind of make sure we're on that point. Second of all, I always ask, what's the name on the side of the door? Who did they check in as? Those are simple questions I ask because I want to make sure that, okay, yeah, that's the driver I have. That's the name that I have on the side of the door, stuff like that. So, and that's just, the extra layer of protection. Not because, I want to, I was a driver. I mean, we've been out there, we all try to make money and it's all fine and dandy, but there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And so I got to do what I got to do because, I'm a liaison as a broker. Really, that's what I am. I'm a liaison between the carrier and the shipper. The carrier wants me to be on their side. And, quite honestly, I got to be on the side. I got to be on the side that's right. I need carriers as well as I need customers. I got to look out for what's in the best interest of my customer, but in the same token, I got to look out for what's in the best interest of my carrier as well. And try, as hard as that is, try to make it as fair as possible and make everybody involved as happy as possible at the end of the day. But boy, I tell you what, that's depending on the situation, that's easier said than done.
Well, you're protecting the customer there as well, because
Correct.
Their product, if you don't check, could be going on a truck that has no insurance. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, as a customer, if I was hiring a broker, I would want a broker that's going to protect me.
Correct.
And drivers, just for your information, double brokering loads hurts you because by the time it gets down to you, everybody's taking a piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the rate keeps coming down. You don't want double brokered or triple brokered loads because each time it went through a hand, they took a little bit before it went to the next hand.
Correct.
So it hurts the industry altogether.
Yep. And I will elaborate on that. I want to elaborate on a part you just said there, double brokering. Double brokering is illegal. Every part of double brokering is illegal. And really what the definition of double brokering is that, a carrier portrays someone will call a broker or a customer in a sense and portray themselves as being a carrier. In actuality, they're not, they could be a carrier, but And they have carrier authority. That's fine. I've seen it a lot. And then they end up taking that loader for whatever reason, whether it's intentional, whatever. I'm not really going to get into that aspect of it. They turn around and broker to somebody else. That carrier is not the actual one. And that's double brokering. That's what makes it illegal, because you portrayed. The part that makes it illegal is the fact that you portrayed like you were a carrier, you were running it with your carrier. So that part is that's the whole part of it that makes it illegal. Co-brokering is actually something that is highly used in the industry. And quite honestly, a lot of freight would not be moved if there was no such thing as co-brokering. We just don't have enough trucks and stuff like that in the United States to even think about trying to run this business in a sense, from this whole part of this industry with no co-brokering whatsoever. The word logistics, when it comes down to it, you can have 15 different companies with the word logistics after their name, and you would think that they're competitors, and in certain instances they could be competitors of each other, but this industry is so big that they could be in logistics, and their whole structure and what part of logistics they focus on has nothing to do with the other companies. So, that's where co-brokering would come in. And co-brokering, all it is, the fact is that they're a broker, I'm a broker. They acknowledge that I'm a broker. They acknowledge that I'm going to, reach out and hire carriers or contract carriers to haul that freight. And so now the co-broker agreement is put in place, practically liability to protect them and protect me as a broker, and kind of really more or less to protect everybody involved should, something go down where those protections would not be there by double brokering, because there's no agreement established in that to begin with. So that's really the difference. A lot of people will say, oh, well, it's the same thing. No, it's not, because one is breaking the law and the other one's not. It's just simple. One you portrayed as being a carrier. The other one is the fact that you did not portray to be a carrier. You actually, established that, hey, I'm a broker, and there's actually a contract in place to protect. That's the difference. One has a contract, one doesn't. That's where the difference comes in. But there's companies out there, large companies, large logistics, that they go out and they deal with these customers that have a lot of freight, and they'll handle all their logistics for them. They'll do the whole logistics ordeal, the contract out. Sometimes it's yearly contracts, multiple years. They'll handle all that stuff for them because they have the means to do it, platforms, so on and so forth. And then they can't move all that freight. We're talking about they'll go out and they'll land, some lanes. They'll land some stuff where they're moving 300, 400 loads a week, sometimes more. And that's a lot of manpower. That takes a lot of work, a lot of hours go into that to oversee that kind of operation. There's nothing wrong with that, but what they'll do to help offset that and still accomplish it is they'll bring in brokers like myself. My forte is just to deal with the actual getting the carriers, moving the freight, and dealing with the problems, solving, scheduling appointments, and stuff like that. Not all brokers, not all logistics, in a sense, tie into movement of the freight with the actual drivers. They do it on other scales, like with brokers, and hand 40 loads here, 30 loads there, or whatever the case may be, and break it down like that. And that's how they get it covered. So that's why you see the mass difference involved, and why co-brokering is very important and why we have it.
All right. One more question. Now, I already know you take care of your drivers because I've talked to you. You were a driver at one time, and it's a little bit different than some of the brokers who are never drivers. You try real hard not to, you don't burn your drivers. You tell them what the deal is, real straight up with them. But on the other aspect, what do you offer your customers? I'd imagine you have quite a bit to offer your customers that another broker doesn't, because you have gone all the way through the industry. So what do you offer your customers that one of the other 100,000 brokers don't?
There's definitely a lot of brokers out there. The biggest thing that does help me a lot is one, I acknowledge the fact that I think it's very important to establish the fact that we all need each other. Customers need brokers, brokers need customers, and we all need carriers. Customers need carriers as well, brokers need carriers. We all need each other, and got to figure out a way to work with each other as best as possible to get the bigger picture done, which is obviously to get the product picked up on time and get it to where it needs to be at in a safe manner. Now, with being an owner operator, being out there, what helps a lot is that I understand what the drivers go through. I'm not that broker that just cares about trying to put a rate on it, get whatever driver can get in on it and get them moved. And and that's fine. There's brokers out there that's all they care about. That's how they want to run business. Hey, there's multiple ways to run business. That's fine. I don't really care for running business like that. But and they don't care really what happens in between. They'll give you the load, boom, you knock it out. I don't really care what happens in between. And the contrary, when I'm getting a load, there's a few things that I do that I want to make sure, one, it makes it easier and less stressful for me, but overall it gives it the best ability and the advantage to both myself and the customer, and overall to whoever the carrier is up being the one doing the load. I want to do as much, I like to call recon, I guess, if you want to call it. When I get a load, I'm looking at who the shipper is, who the receiver is, how many days of transit we're talking about as far as miles, where they're going, so on and so forth. And can they park on site at the shipper and do their breaks there? Can they do that at the receiver? Can they not? Is there any lumpers? Obviously, if there is, I like to try to figure out what those lumpers are so I can try to get those taken care of and make sure the drivers are aware of it and can take care of it so there's not a surprise when those time comes. Sometimes with some of these facilities, you'll never figure out what the darn lumpers are. So that's kind of that. But those are all big things that take in consideration. See, because I've been a driver, been out there, some of these facilities that I've been there. So I already know how some of those facilities work from a firsthand, ordeal, because I've been there. I know some of these facilities when I'll hop on Google. I'll see what drivers are talking about. If I see 4, 5, 6 drivers talking about going to this shipper and they get stuck there sitting 6, 7 hours, that already tells me as a broker that I'm going to run into issues as far as detention, potentially fallouts, because in today's day and age, with the market being what it is, let's be quite honest. How many carriers want to sit around and would be willing to, want to get paid detention? One, chances are the detention they're getting paid is going to be less than what they're making driving down the road. Two, they're going to have to fight tooth and nail because unfortunately, there is not all brokers, but there's quite a bit of brokers that won't pay detention, or they'll try to GM on detention. So in actuality, it ends up being that carrier just out there for free, really, when it's all said and done, which I think is wrong. And so I try to set myself up to know that I'm gonna, I could potentially deal with those issues. And as soon as I see that, I'll relate that and I'll communicate with the customer. And the reason why is because overall, it really costs the customer money at the end of it all. They're the ones paying the detention. They're the ones that got to go through the headache to authorize the detention and all that stuff. My job is to try to make things as smooth as possible and take as many headaches away from them, just like it is for the carrier. So trying to stay ahead and get an understanding of what we're going to deal with and what we may potentially deal with, what issues may arise, and just having a game plan in place. So in case it does happen, we can work around that and try to, get past it, figure out a solution as quickly as possible. It's the name of the game. I think a lot of that comes with the knowledge and the experience of being out there. I think that's really big what comes in. And another thing is that I know what drivers are looking for. So now, of course, they're all looking for a big bank. Don't get me wrong, but I know realistically what it's going to take. So when I'm looking at a lane, and let's just say, everybody's got this, and I'll see it, and some customers don't like it, but I'm just going to be quite honest with you. They're already paying it anyways. When I'm looking at a lane and I see that the same lane is posted or a similar lane is posted for $800, and okay, the market may call for $800 for whatever reason, that may say it's $800 or whatever the case may be. And I see the same lane posted for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, trying to move at $800. Obviously, that tells me that load is not going to be moving. Why is it not moving? There could be multiple reasons why it's not moving. Maybe it's not moving because of the time that it picks up and the time it delivers, and it's just not, it's not feasible. It's not favorable to a driver, so nobody's going to go grab it. The reality is when I talk to my customers, I tell them that. They tell me, well, I'm trying to be at $800. Well, yes, my job is to try to move it as cheap as possible. Don't get me wrong, and I will do that. I will do everything I can to do exactly that. But as well as this is business, and I'm pretty sure you're going to want me to be realistic and tell you, hey, honestly, this is what it's really going to take, and these are the reasons why, than to waste your time and say, well, yeah, I think I can move it at $800 and already know that there's no way I can move it at $800. If it's going to be $1,000 or $1,100 because of whatever reason, then I'm going to be honest. Hey, honestly, I've gone back and I looked at everything. Just to kind of give you a heads up, I'm going to be quite honest with you. It's probably going to take $1,000, $1,100 to get it moved. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's about being cheap. It's about trying to, that's business, but product has to get moved. Their customers are, counting on that product being received when it is they need it. And the customer that I'm working with, is obviously counting on getting their products to that customer that needs it when they need it. So it kind of all goes hand in hand. So he's counting on me, obviously, to relay to him and to be forward with him and realistic on, hey, this is what it's going to take in today's market to be able to make it happen and to provide for you so we can give your customer exactly what it is that they're expecting. it does me no good to lie to him and tell him what he wants to hear, because obviously we've kind of already figured the fact that of what they want to hear and what's really happened is two different things. Me, I don't have a problem telling them that it's going to cost $1,000, $1,100, because I'm going to be quite honest. If he moves that load quite often, $1,000, $1,100 probably would not be the first time they've heard that. Most likely they've even heard more than that from other brokers. I bet you if they have a fallout on that lane, it would be more than that. If they really, really need to move it at the last minute and they don't have a truck for it, and all of a sudden you want to get a truck, you're paying a whole lot more than that. So to save, that's the way I look at it. To save you money, I look at the fact that you may pay more than what you want to pay anyways. And I got that. There's numerous factors that go into that. Obviously more loads to trucks, so on and so forth. All that plays into that. So what can I do to minimize that cost as much as possible? And that would be to be realistic and truthful with you, to tell you honestly what it's going to take as far as market wise to get it done. And this is the number it's going to take so we can get it done. And you tell me yes or no. Obviously, they're the customers. At the end of the day, they tell me what they want to do. But I know that I've told them and explained this is the reason of what it's going to take to make it happen, and we get it done, because that's what's the most important. Another thing, and a lot of brokers are moving towards it if they haven't already, technology. GPS. I know something a lot of owner operators don't want to hear about the GPS ordeal. They don't like GPS. I've heard multiple drivers, oh man, I don't want big brother, what I'm saying, that's not my problem, blah, blah, blah. Look, I got it. It could be frustrating at times. I admit it. I never had a problem with it when I was on the road, but I'll be quite honest with you. Big brother's already got you, man. That cell phone you got in your pocket, big brother's on it. You know what I'm saying? That ELD you got in your truck, big brother's on. I mean, we're already working that way anyways. But it's another service. It's transparency. Quite honestly, I've never ran into an owner operator or a driver for any means that when they're out there doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that's exactly what they're doing, they don't care. They don't care. They don't have nothing to hide. So, and for the customers, it makes it easy because they get to see where their freight's at. They can start planning off of it, to be honest with you. It's very helpful for me as a broker to know that for an example, I may have, 6, 7 loads en route from California to Pennsylvania, and I may have 4 scheduled to be delivered today. And that receiver over there, for whatever reason, they may be delayed a little bit or something like that. I can get ahead of that, because now I'm able to look at the GPS without having to call the drivers and bother them or any of that stuff in the other while they're working. They can, do what they got to do, and I don't have to bother them. And I could see that, okay, he's 280 miles out. It's going to put him here roughly at this time, which will put him, right at, 30 minutes prior to his appointment time or something like that. But they have a delay over there. So I need to start coordinating with the receiver. Hey, I have this truck, so on and so forth. So we can start trying to get that work in. You get in there and finding out, oh, nobody knew you were coming or anything like that, and they're so far delayed, and I didn't coordinate with them. So now you're going to sit there 4, 5, 6 hours. That could be the difference between me coordinating with them and get you in the door and out within 3.5 hours compared to 6, 7 hours later. So that's part of me doing my job as well, and being able to relay that back to the customer, so the customer is aware of what's going on. Because overall, at the end of it all, they're the customer. I mean, they're the ones that are paying for it when it's all said and done. So they need to know what's going on and what is it going to take, and what changes we need to make to try to, at the end of it all, keep the service going and keep everybody as happy as possible and get the product where it needs to go as best as possible. And that's a massive ordeal. My GPS ordeal that we use is called Freight Tracer. It's real-time tracking. It does even provide routes, for the drivers. Gives them a few different routes that they can go, so they can choose from that. And then on top of that, when they're doing a 10-hour break or whatever, they're stopped for a break, they can put themselves DOT break. So, it's not binging, your phone's not clicking or making weird noises or none of that stuff while you're on break. It lets me know you're on a break. Okay, yeah, I know you're on a break. You're good. I'm not even going to bother you, because I've been a driver. I'm not that broker that's going to call you 15, 20 times. I know the thing that I hear all the time, but, I get these brokers call me 15, 20. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. As long as you're doing the job that we got to do, and everybody's involved and knows what we got going on, obviously the GPS keeps me from having to call. Dude, we all got 24 hours in a day. That makes my job easier. You made my job easier. We make each other's job easier. Customers happy. They're getting what they're getting. The service is there. So they feel, everybody's happy. That's the name of the game. We're figuring out a way to keep everybody happy, and, everybody making money and being able to pay their bills and stay in business and, take care of family. That's really what it's all. That's really what it's all about when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we're gonna wrap this up. But before we go, I'm gonna say one thing. I know this man, and if you're hauling a load for Mr. Rivera, trust me, you're in good hands. I personally know him. I've known him since 2012 from the day he stepped on my truck. And I should have known from day one he was a go-getter. He's the only student that ever woke me up before my alarm went off because he was tired of sitting. We were in Nashville, Tennessee. I'll never forget that. But great guy. If you're a customer and you're looking to use a broker, if he has room for you, he's a good guy to use. I've known him a long time. He's very straightforward, very honest. So I give him a thumbs up. I hope this helps some of you drivers kind of understand, truck to load ratio, also that the broker isn't the enemy. Y'all are working together. They're kind of in the middle. Help you be a little bit more profitable in your business. Hopefully the customers kind of understand too what these guys are going through in the middle, doing that work for them to help protect them and their loads from these double brokering and different illegal things that can happen out here. And this is a good one to use because he's actually been out there. And me personally, I can attest he's been out there. Not only has he been on my truck, we ran bottom hoppers together. We also did owner operator together. We were both buying trucks. We've been there, I know for a fact that he's been there. So everybody, you know the deal, man. Stay safe, keep between the lanes, and keep trucking.
Absolutely.